Hello, everyone. Hope everybody had a great fall break. And thank you for your submissions or the submissions of your narratives that I was able to read using our Discord. And I'm here to, as promised, to provide you with a recorded lecture or a primer on what is now called playable theater. So, playable theater is initially a project by or initiated by Dr. Celia Pierce of Northeastern University. She's also the co-founder of Indicade, or the independent festival of game design for independent game designers. And this initiative grew out of some entries from Indicade that has to do with theater that is shall we say immersive theater with elements of game design. So playable theater, here's the definition in their website. Playable theater is broadly described as participatory immersive theatrical events, or what they call embodied experiences, where audiences have meaningful agency to influence the outcome, or mostly audiences are interacting with actors or the space, or the reason it's called immersive is because the audience are really situated inside the narrative. So they bring together aspect of game design and theater to create new forms of art and entertainment. These works encompass a wide range of genres in which participants are an active part of the experience, ranging from forms of immersive theater to live action role playing, or what is called LARP. Right. So basically, when you say playable theater, it's the combination of game design and theater. So that's why it's called playable. So you, as an audience, or technically, there's no concept of audience anymore, but what is called a player. Like in this case, this is a photo of one of the most famous, if not the groundbreaking play called Sleep No More of the group called Punch Drunk. So as you can see, audiences are really intimate with performers, and the performers are can interact with the audiences. The audiences are they're wearing masks in order for them to be identified as audiences. So as you can see, playable theater, according to Celia Pierce, it's not necessarily a new phenomenon. Because according to her, theater and game, they're quite similar in many aspects. Mostly, if we're gonna look at the presentation on the right, says that the primary focus of both theater and game is the process of resolving a conflict. So we all know from the discipline of theater that there's called the Aristotelian plot, wherein there will be conflict between characters and resolution towards the end of the story. So do games, because games are normally composed of quests and the need to fulfill missions. And doing so, having this conflict in the story creates a narrative arc. So that is one of the fundamental similarities between theater and games. How they diverge, however, says here that games have variable outcomes based on player agency. So this is talking about theater in the sense of conventional or traditional theater, wherein there's a fixed plot, a fixed opening, beginning until an end. But with games, depends on how well you play the game or how you explore the game. It influences some outcomes. So, meaning the combination of playable of games and play with theater already influenced theater in such a way the theater is no longer predictable. So as you can see, there have been some adjacencies between theater and games, even before. There's what we call theater games. Theater games are basically games or workshop activities that are conducted pre-production. or sometimes during the course of the rehearsal period, so that the actors will be able to, explore their characters more, and for the director to be, to be more creative in the directing process. So that's why they used theater games to improvise, or to develop new ways of performing, in the course of production. There's what we call the process drama, which is sometimes or oftentimes indistinguishable from LARP. But process drama is normally used in, um, shall we say, social experiments, wherein they will be conducting scenes. Sometimes we all know this as improvisations, or this is something that we also call as an instant group dynamic that happens in the street. So if something, or um a social experiment is being done, process drama is one of the most often used tool in order to measure a certain phenomena. There's a what we call Theater of the Oppressed by Augusto Boal. Theater of the Oppressed is highly participatory. What happens here is that audiences have the ability to change the outcome, to change scenes as they saw fit, in order to remove oppression or to transcend oppression. There's what we call device theater, which is very popular nowadays, wherein the devising happens majority of the time during pre-production. And when we say device, um, basically it's the convention of devising means that unlike traditional theater, that we have the script written by the playwright, we have the director calling all the shots, we have the production designer, the entire collective is involved in creating or in the creation of the production. So they can begin with either a set design, not necessarily a script, because most often traditional theater relies on a text or a script. But device theater, it's basically devising everything until they create an ensemble or a performance. And what happens next is they fix it into a repertoire, and it is presented. But then again, this is more of a conventional theater, wherein once the devising is finished, but the play is permanent. You cannot change the beginning and the end, so audience cannot influence or does not have agency in these kinds of plays. We have improv. We all know what improv is. No need to discuss. Yes, and we also have performance studies. Play rituals. With this, I'm familiar with the research I did with Victor Turner, and he proposed that play, games, performances, and theater are single, or just one concept before the 19th century, or before the Industrial Revolution happened. So for in those days, he posited that leisure and labor are not separate activities. So yeah, that's why, as you can see, weddings, some rituals, the bar mitzvah, these rituals are very theatrical at the same time. So yeah, this is yet another evidence that theater and games, or if you will, consider that theater and games are just the same. Yeah. Okay, so that's why we have playable theater now. And what distinguishes playable theater from all of these adjacencies is that it utilizes game design that are quite modern, or conventional, or contemporary game design to theater as we know it. So let us discuss some of the characteristics that playable theater has, and this will also include basic or a linear methodology in how to create playable theater. One is, unlike a complete text or a narrative, or much like device theater, it can begin with a premise. So we have here a poster of Sleep No More, or Punch Drunk's groundbreaking production of Sleep No More, which is an adaptation. of Macbeth by Shakespeare. So the premise here is that it is the story of Macbeth or Macbeth, if you're familiar with the story, and but it is situated in a dimly lit 1930s era establishment called the McKittrick Hotel. So it's Macbeth situated in a hotel, and this is called also a promenade theater in which the audience walks at their own pace through a variety of theatrically designed rooms as well as environmental theater in which the physical location rather than being a traditional playhouse is an imitation of the actual setting. So in short, the audience they explore, they wander the space, and this is a good example. If you wish to if you're now going to about to begin your design phase in our spatial storytelling, this is a very good example to study. So audiences, they walk around the hotel, enter the elevator, go to some rooms, encounter some actors. So the narrative here is really broken. It's not linear. You may have a single start point, but as you explore, you will not have the benefit to see all of the scenes in one go. So it's no much like any game. It requires a lot of going at it again and exploring until such time that you get as much piece of the narrative as you can get. So after the premise is established, much like game design, most playable theater would immediately proceed with providing an audience or providing the player their role and purpose. So in this case, it says that Celia Pierce says player role here as a clear relationship to the action of the game or the player alibi, or what I call the player's reason for existence. Why is the player even in the narrative? What is the player's purpose in the narrative? Why is the player, has to go through the narrative? So what's the reason for existence of this player? For play or for Sleep No More, there's no such thing because basically the audience are just hovering as themselves, with masks, and they are just to observe and explore the space and connect the story. They're just pretty much audiences behaving as audiences in a different way. That they're not seated, but they're actively seeking the narrative. But for in our case, for our course, spatial storytelling, now that we're working with urban legends, you can provide players with definite roles, like maybe they're ghost hunters, paranormal experts. We can provide them to the characters so that they have a reason to explore the different spaces that we've established or the different urban legends that they are probably investigating. Again, as of recording this lecture, I've seen some of your proposals, and yes, I like the idea that there's a student who would be offering flowers to Mariang Banga, or what you guys call as the gazebo girl, and there's a person trying to find the missing person in Baker Hall while you are being attacked by evil, malevolent spirits there. Maybe what can be done there is to make it more clearer as to why the player or what motivates the player to find this missing person. Like, what's the relationship? Why does he have to do it, etc. The manager for of a restaurant, yeah, he lives or he or they live near the haunted spaces. So yeah, that's a good starting point. That's why there's a reason that they have to pass that particular road that is being haunted. And as for the other one, driving towards Narrow Bridge, yeah, I mean we could to make the game more compelling, we should give the player or the audience a lot more. I mean, yeah, I mean the player or the user a lot more reason to cross the bridge, right? So again, what's the player's alibi of being in the narrative? What's the reason for existence? So we establish that after the premise. So we have the role, the purpose, and the costume. So this is according again to Miss Sylvia Pierce, what she calls being player centered. So keep the player at the center of your process, or be a player advocate. In other words, what she means is that what you need to do here is give them or design the experience revolving around what the player should be experiencing, or you should design it for a particular user. So this means that for playable theater to be successful, um, give them again a lot of motivation and a lot of emotion arcs, a lot of surprises, if you may, or in other words, in marketing, we use this as customer. We term this as customer delight. So give them a very thick narrative for them to be able to explore a lot of details, or give them a lot of things to do. So in order to make the narrative more compelling or a lot thicker, maybe you should ask these questions, or maybe the player, you should give this set of questions to the player as to why are they going to explore the narrative. You can provide them with the one of their motivations is for them to know why is there haunting in the first place, why is the place haunted, who is the ghostly presence, which is basically the big question mark in our urban legends. What was the place before? Because there's a tendency that the place used to be someplace else before the place was turned into its contemporary usage. So 100 years ago, 50 years ago, there are old maps that would tell you, is there something that's significant that happened in this place that that they don't know? So these are the things that you can provide a player to create more mystique, more intrigue. So you give them more purpose for existence, and you unfold or make these purpose known to them by creating a tutorial level. So this is an introductory portion of gameplay that teaches you how to play, essentially. So it can be facilitated by an NPC, or this will be the part wherein you provide the instructions. So this is the part wherein you provide them the mission. What is the objective of the player? So as for the stories, it is quite clear for the other person trying to find the missing person who's gone missing when that person went to the Baker Hall. So if let's say he's a father trying to search for a son, or a lover trying to search for the partner, then that is the objective. Find out what happened, and the goal is to essentially retrieve that missing person. So we can also work on, since we're working on urban legends, we can work on cold spots, or some spaces in within the spatial storytelling set. Where is there a crime scene? Is there a missing person? Can also provide here the the characteristic of the ghostly presence. Is the ghost cooperative? Is the ghost seeking help, or is it malevolent? Much like in the Baker Hall story that you are proposing, so that needs to be avoided, chases after you needs to be exercised. So these are the basic relationships that could be created, and it should be clear from the get-go, so that the player would have its identity, right? Another thing that could be established within the tutorial level would be, what is the basic equipment that the player would be able to utilize. So this list was taken directly from a famous game called Phantasmagoria. It is a ghost hunting game. So say for example that your character is trying to unravel the mystery or the crime, then maybe this investigator would have some set of tools that they will be using. So it could be a spirit box, for instance, ghostwriting book, a photo camera, etc., etc. So maybe a UV flashlight. There's some writing on the walls and other additional equipment that may be used in order for you to have to in order for the player to have something to use to unravel what's happening in the narrative, or to probably maybe a spirit box will be used to communicate with, let's say, Mariang Banga or the gazebo girl, in order for in order to understand what kind of flowers should be offered to her, so that she will not get mad anymore. Maybe a ghostwriting book can be used so that you can give it to or leave it on the floor in Baker Hall, so that spirits can communicate with you. And yeah, these are some tools. Or in other role playing games, you'll be provided with sword, with shields, with armor. So treat it as also an inventory of what the character shall be using. So at this point, you would now notice that in playable theater, it functions pretty much like an RPG. You have a player, a user can acquire its own name, and can also dress themselves and choose a particular weapon or tool that they'll be using at different stages of the game or the narrative. All right. So as a designer, we follow a verb-based design, and we all know these. What we do in order to create what's the basic action or to create the game mechanic. So I've listed here the verb-based design or the mechanic for Sleep No More. So for Sleep No More, so these are the verbs highlighted, or verbs are bigger or in bold. So what the player needs to do is to follow one specific character to the self-contained story, and then piece stories, or they can stay in one room and to watch action unfold and explore entirety of the set. Or they can also dive into some intricacies of the room itself or some details, snooping through diaries, riffling through suitcases in order to look at personal items that will provide more clue to what's happening in the story, or what's the personality of the characters that they're dealing with. Or in this case, if we're working with a missing person or a person who just died and would like to communicate with a ghost, then that is something that can also be used. So more on that later. And the core mechanic drives the verbs of the game. So we now have a series of the verbs, or the verb design that uh, that uh, that is basically what the players are going to do in the narrative. And the core mechanic is pretty much the summary or the overall game mechanic, or what the player should be doing in one sentence. So in this case, you're free to independently wander and follow cast members as you wish. Each actor tells their own story with other actors simultaneously, telling interconnected stories in other rooms and other floors. So that's basically the summary of the verb design, and this is what comprises the game mechanic or the core mechanic of the entire experience called Sleep No More. So for your games, you now have the premise. I suggest that again we develop the player's reason for existence, and we provide them with a series of verb designs. I really suggest you improve your docs with a list of verb designs, of verb based designs, and you provide a summary or a core mechanic. So here, the mechanics are the message. So ideally, game mechanics should be aligned with the story goals. So with the gazebo girl, I believe that the one potential mechanic that you're gonna do there is to collect flowers, because again they were blown away, right? As the player is about to offer some flowers for luck in the exams. And since the jar was shifted from the side to Mariam Banga's head, that's a sign of bad luck. then probably what's going to happen is, or the verb base there would be to collect and select and probably arrange flowers in a particular way so that the spirit of the gazebo girl will be pleased. So yeah, that's one of the game mechanic. Another mechanic, for instance, with for the um, for let's say for the narrow bridge is to honk three times, honk three times, drive at a particular miles per hour. So a lot of maybe this could be a driving game, uh, because it could be a game that is only solvable or winnable if a certain driver performs particular set of tasks that are quite complicated, so that the player would need to perform or should demonstrate a certain kind or degree of dexterity in driving, so that they'd be able to pass, not only pass the never-ending bridge, the so-called never-ending bridge, but also to be so successfully avoid the spirits that are posing as obstacles as you go along, right? So that could be an option as a game. And I believe the manager from the fast food is quite compelling as well, because there's a lot of history that can be unraveled, when the old road is traveled again due to the new bridge, being impassable as of the moment. So again, there are game mechanics. My tip also is to you can also combine game mechanics from other games, like Super Mario. Just jump and avoid, hop on some characters. So you can use some game mechanics that are familiar with you. But again, our project is also concerned with the narrative, and our concern mainly is to demonstrate the narrative of the story. So again, please don't forget that not only that we are going to establish the hunting, we should also inform them why the hunting is happening in the first place. Was there an injustice that happened? Was there something that an unpleasant happened? Was there an accident? So was is there an unfinished business that needs to be that requires your help? So in order for us to be able to get more stories, or to get a clearer picture of the origins of these or urban legends. Now we're going to talk about the setting, and of course our setting here is going to be virtual using Unreal Engine. So this will be a characteristic of the fictional world. So it depends on you on how expansive the university would look like. Again, there are aerial maps of the UPLB that I will share with you, and also you can download easily, so that you'll be able to situate properly where these locations are. So as for setting, the setting contributes to the story, not just as a backdrop, but in spatial storytelling especially. It will help you, or it will help the player piece together, the origins or the narrative. So with regards to the setting, there are a lot of techniques that can be shared, and these techniques are the techniques that I will discuss now. Does not have the benefit of having um, NPCs or non-playable characters. I will discuss a part wherein you can use minimal, or we will have minimal use of the NPCs. But for the most part, we will explore how space tells a story. Okay, so in unraveling the story of the story world, so we can have a lot of items. Just like what I've mentioned earlier, much like in Sleep No More, they can snoop or dive into items that can be found in space. So pretty much, you're familiar with this kind of storytelling in escape rooms, wherein you need to really tinker with a lot of stuff in order to have some clues. But then again, unraveling the story of the story world doesn't always necessarily involve puzzles. So in this case, since we're talking about narratives, and we're not really talking about escaping a room, then it will really help if you can have really tiny details that would really make the narrative really thick. So we can have newspapers that can be read by your characters. So it will provide them with okay, so what's the date today? So you can have calendars, you can have magazines that will provide you with some important people or some news on a certain death or a certain crime. So these are techniques. Like for instance, let us assume that there's a crime that happened in the Narrow Bridge, and at the beginning or the tutorial level that yeah, there's a woman who was found dead by the river below the bridge. So that's the only information that you know so far. But upon going into the story world, you will chance upon a newspaper that will detail, the crime scene or the date of the death, who are the people involved, and this kind of information can will lead to another information that can be found probably in an obituary. Maybe you need to go to maybe you need to look into a map because you can go to the address of the person who died and probably go to the room. So going to the room, maybe there's some diary entries of the deceased that you can access. Maybe there's an old letter that was sent by some person. Maybe there's a hate letter, and maybe you will start um, piecing these things together until you'll be able to find the killer, and then more information will unfold. You can also look into collected objects. Maybe there'll be objects like the Ouija board or the haunted mirror that you can use to communicate. So, since again we're very interested in narrative, it is rather than maybe just crossing the bridge. So since we're going to be more focused on information gathering, right? So we can also have some hospitals, locations, libraries. So maybe you can look into the medical record or the coronary's record of the corpse. Maybe there's some old reels, etc. And we also and this is also the part when I said that we can also have an interaction with a non-playable character. But I will really suggest to use this in the minimum. Like maybe you just have to talk to a person in the tutorial level, a person at the hospital. But of course, we will try to avoid getting all of the information from the non-playable character. Probably the non-playable character will just direct you or provide you with some clues as to where to go next. Some techniques that are also being used are flashbacks and cutscenes. In order for you to be able to advance the narrative or advance the plot, so that so flashbacks and cutscenes are there to provide you also with tons of information in order for you to have something to hold on when you're piecing together the story. So after you've unraveled, so now that the premise has been, shall we call, divided into pieces, what's gonna happen here is that when you create the story, normally follows is you are going to uh, convert pieces of the stories into items. So just like what I've said here, you can have a story that will appear in the newspaper, a feature that will appear in a magazine, and then some clues leading to the house, then other locations, maybe a graveyard, cutscenes, etc. Now we'll come to the part, or go to the part of what we call the storytelling mode. So, storytelling modes, there are some here that will help you decide on how you're gonna relay the narrative. So, one is called branching. So, this is basically choose your own adventure. If you're familiar with choose your own adventure books, so choosing one path leads to another. It is quite linear and it has low agency. But then again, choosing is again according to Celia, satisfying if done right. So you can use branching storytelling mode if you would like to. We have spatial storytelling. We've been talking a lot about storytelling a while ago. So using the space to convey narrative. So we have the verb that will be used here is explore. So we can have puzzles, mysteries. So this is basically how escape rooms are being done as well. So you'd like to maybe use a lot of opening the drawers, reading some texts, talking to some people, etc. So closely aligned to spatial storytelling is forensic storytelling. So this is being like an investigator, detective. So you construct a story based off the facts or based on clues. So the verbs here is investigate and connect. Probably the difference between spatial storytelling and forensic storytelling is that with forensics, you're basically using um, clues and evidences, while for um, spatial storytelling, you're using the space to unravel some things. So you're discovering one clue that will lead to another clue, while forensic storytelling is piecing together disparate and non-linear scenes and evidences together in order to form a story. Puzzle stories pretty much aligned with spatial storytelling. This is like this is basically escape rooms. So use puzzles to uncover narrative. So solving, unraveling, and deciphering. And the one with the highest agency or form of agency is what we call procedural storytelling. So this is being used in LARPs and tabletop. So this is mostly improvisational, wherein the story is co-created by the players themselves. So it depends on how you play your character that the story is being influenced or the ending is being influenced. Overall, you can combine all of these story modes. So Sleep No More is very much branching. Every scenes are fixed. Just have to go to these rooms and connect the story together, much like forensic storytelling. Escape rooms are pretty much like spatial storytelling, wherein through the manipulation of the space, you'll be able to construct a story or maybe solve a mystery or escape. Essentially, maybe a prison or escape a mental institution. And while procedural storytelling, um, again, it depends on how you play your character. So you're assigned a role, and depends on how you. Let's say there's this very famous play called Red Flags by Capital W. You might want to look at it. Capital W immersive. it's a date essentially. So you're playing against a person. It's a blind date. So your role is you're attending that blind date, and that other person is essentially an actor. And depending on how you play your role, is is how the game reaches a certain level of ending, or how the story will be co-written or co-created by you. So in general, what I would say here regarding the storytelling modes is that you can actually combine all of these storytelling modes in one game. So there'll be a part that can be linear. There will be a part that depends on how you play it, or how you decide to do it, or maybe the ending depends on how you want to end the story, or maybe much like Bandersnatch from Black Mirror in Netflix, right? So there are five possible endings. So that's branching. Um, for spatial storytelling, pretty much like RPGs, you need to really search the space for clues. Use magnifying glasses if you have to, in order to get a clear picture of the story. So overall, the narrative can be delivered in so many ways, and that's what makes playable theater really exciting. So to summarize, the process, playable theater would begin with the premise, and this is in the point of view of creation. Now you have, shall I say, a rough premise. I would encourage you to develop the premise further to include possible goals and objectives. Again, I have asked you to develop the player's role and purpose, the reason for existence or the player's alibi. Develop the goals further and objectives, so that there's a reason. There's this motivation for the player to exhibit in the game, or to keep the player interested. The verb base for game mechanics, or the core mechanic, gives the player the opportunity to know what are the allowable action. Because to tell you honestly, there will be players who would like to go off script, quote unquote. Despite the absence of a script in playable theater, there will be a person, or there'll be a group of people who would go off script and try to explore and try to test the limits of your story world. And with that, that's why it's very important in number five, for the settings and objects of your story world, especially now that we have very virtual story world, to be comprehensive, to be diverse, even to include a lot of assets that can be manipulated by the players. So it will add more layers or thickness of the narrative, and it will keep these kinds of people really interested and convinced in the authenticity of your game. And finally, again, can choose a story mode or combine all story modes. Again, we have branching, spatial, forensic, puzzles, and procedural. If you'd like for them to have a combination of a combination of two or three, then that will make our game really interesting. Right. So for more information about playable theater, we have an article written here in medium.com, and most of the material that I discussed with you came from Celia Pierce's talk during the immersive summit in 2020 or 2019, I think. So yeah, if you'd like to listen to the talk, this is going to be very informational as well. So I've also provided you with the reading list, because basically playable theater, you can learn a lot about making playable theater by also looking into detective games, murder mysteries, escape rooms. So that's all. And before I close, I'd just like to say that um, I would want to see some of the things here, especially the summary, to be present. Or this is a request, for these items to be present in your docs, hopefully by next week, so that we can get clear view of the premises, players, goals, objectives, mechanics, etc. And I'm looking forward to, I believe, next week, where I will be speaking with you guys in class again, so that I will be able to address some questions and we can talk about the games that you're working on. Right. So again, this is just call me Prof G or G for ease of conversation, and enjoy your weekend.